Welcome to the Why Not podcast with me, Chrissy Hawkins. In a world where everybody always asks why, I'm here to ask, why not? I'll be breaking down the mindsets of guests as well as my own in a bid to find out what makes people say, why not? Hello and welcome back to Why Not. So today I have another interview with Nikki Harris. She is a nutritional therapist based over in the UK and she specialises in hormone health. So today we talk all about hormones and how they may be affecting your weight loss and you do not realise. We talk about the Dutch test, was something that I'd never heard about, and I learned a lot about that today. And we just do have a little general chat about how people kind of sometimes go a little overboard at the start instead of gradually in introducing things. So really informative interview today, I think. There was a lot of sciencey stuff sometimes, but I thought it was very interesting. And maybe you might be able to realise why there are certain things that are affecting you that you mightn't have known before. As ever, guys, sit back and relax and enjoy, or walk and listen, whatever way you want to do it. Enjoy the podcast with Nikki Harris. Hi guys, and welcome back to Why Not podcast. So today I have got Nikki Harris. Nikki is a nutritional therapist who specialises, I can't say that word today, in hormone health. So I'm going to let Nikki tell you a little bit more about herself. So welcome to the podcast, Nikki. How are you?
Hiya, Chrissy. Thanks for having me on. It's good to meet you.
You too. So do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So as Chrissy has introduced me, I'm Nikki Harris and I'm a fully qualified nutritional therapist. And I do actually specialise in women's hormones. So this, the reason for me getting into hormones was, it was just a real passionate subject of mine while I was actually studying. I just found it so interesting. And, there's so much in-depth background that goes into hormones, what they do, how they work, how they integrate with other body systems. And I think it's really, people sort of say, oh, we've got hormonal symptoms, I feel this, and this, but it'll always be traced back to potentially another body system, maybe the gut, maybe the liver, maybe poor digestion, etc. And I think that, hormones, it's never hormones in isolation. It will always be looking maybe at the stress response from the adrenal glands or maybe the thyroid. So it all has a knock-on effect because the body does actually work synergistically. So I think, also being a woman myself, I'm 46, and I know that when I was studying and traveling to my college most weekends, working full-time, trying to organize a wedding. I was mega stressed and my hormones went basically tits up and I just felt awful. And I think me learning, as I was learning, I was able to kind of understand what was going on, what I could do, how I could address it, what supplements I could take, what testing I could do to delve deeper. And I just find it really fascinating because I think for me in my practice, one of the main symptoms that people come to me with is they want to lose that weight. And they want that $1 million question, how can I lose it? And I think, when clients hit a plateau and, that the weight isn't budging, then that's when we need to do a little bit more delving into why. So, yeah, it isn't just about weight loss, although, this is what the topic of conversation is today. But certainly my interest in nutrition came back when I was in my early 20s, when I had a bout of acne. I had really bad acne on my chin and my jawline, which again is hormonal. Didn't know any different then. I was eating crap food, drinking like a fish, going out every weekend, binge drinking, smoking, you name it, it was going in. And, so the doctor put me on a course of antibiotics for 18 months, which absolutely ruined my gut flora, the bacteria and everything in there. But I didn't know this. And then not long after I started to sort of really bloat up, I looked about 6 months pregnant. My stomach was solid. When I was eating sort of like bread and stuff, I was really struggling. Then I was just craving sugar. I remember sort of eating syrup from a spoon. I was eating,
really?
Loads of sugary stuff because I thought fat was the bad guy. So I was like, sugar's fine. It's no fat in sugar. So that was feeding any bad bacteria that was going on in my gut. And then obviously that was exasperating my hormones, exasperating the bloating, just feeling really tired. And that's where I went to see a kinesiologist and found out I had Candida, which is an overgrowth of Candida albicans, which is actually, you know, a bacteria that lives in the gut, but when it gets overrun, it can cause some problems. And yeah, so that's really what I, you know, had to change the way I was eating. I drank more water, I changed my diet, I cut out sugar, and I just, you know, really kind of started to shrink down because I was getting really puffy and bloated and like a lot of water retention. My legs were swelling up and everything. So yeah, so that's really where my passion came from. And then it was just sort of understanding how changes to my diet, changes to my lifestyle, what I was eating, what I was drinking had an effect on my body, and I saw and felt the results. So I think this is really my passion, is about, I understand how it feels to feel healthy, to feel energized. And I really want to get this message across, because I know there are so many women out there that do, you know, sort of struggle, and they don't know where to go. They don't know how to start. They don't know what to do. You know, maybe they go to Holland and Barrett, they're picking up some supplement that they've read that their friend has done.
Or in the magazine.
Yeah, exactly. That might not be what your body needs. And B, more importantly, if you are on medications from your GP, by taking some of these herbal supplements or vitamins and minerals, you could potentially be putting yourself at a great risk. I mean, for example, if you're on antidepressants and you start taking St. John's wort or something like that, then you're potentially going to see results. And also, if you're on something like warfarin, which is a blood thinner, and you start taking fish oils and things, then again, that's going to thin the blood out even more. So it's really, really important that if you are on medications and you do start taking supplements, that you speak to a qualified nutritional therapist, or you see your GP before you start taking supplements that you've read online, because, you know, potentially, you know, not in all cases, but potentially it can be, you know, extremely dangerous.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Actually, I spoke to a naturopath recently, and she's a herbalist as well, and she was like, do not just buy the pill stuff either. Like, you don't know what you're going to do to yourself.
No, exactly. Yeah. So I think that's really a really important part of my job, is to make sure that, you know, the clients I do see, that I get a full case history, knowing what they're taking, and then that will have an effect on, an influence on the supplements that I do give them. So I do need to check a proper database to make sure, and then I do always cross-reference it with a pharmacist that I'm in a group with, just to make sure that it's safe, you know, because sometimes it can be a little bit of a grey area. So we just need to know that what we're doing isn't going to be causing anybody harm, or putting their medication at risk, where it could be elevating the medication, making it work faster, or staying in the body longer. So yeah, that's a really important part, and quite an important part to highlight, really. So yeah.
So yeah, now that we have our disclaimer, don't be doing anything without having a session.
Get that out of the way.
Talk to me about the importance of hormones in weight loss, because do you think people underestimate how much of a factor that is?
Yeah, I think, you know, sort of initially when clients come to see me and one of their symptoms is like weight loss, then obviously we do address the diet. We look at, you know, sort of the carbohydrate intake. We look at, you know, what they're eating. I mean, I don't go down to so far as to kind of like micromanage the macronutrients, although some people do. I just find it's, you know, making sure that, you know, clients are having, you know, a low GI diet, which is kind of lower in sort of refined carbohydrates, you know, making sure that, you know, there's a minimal amount of animal fats and saturated fats, trans fats, which are found in your margarines and your kind of like butters that are made spreadable. So those kind of like are the main sort of like culprits when it comes to weight gain. So also as well, looking at, you know, sort of like the carbohydrate intakes, making sure that they are whole grains and sort of more whole, so that we're not sort of eating white bread, white pasta, white rice, you know, having refined sugar and things like that, because they are the ones that will spike the blood sugar levels. And when we've got insulin, you know, insulin being released, insulin is actually known as a fat storing hormone. So that was my first port of call, is looking at the diet and then sort of making modifications and looking at that. But in terms of hormones, then, you know, once we get the diet cleaned up a little bit and we look at sort of, you know, any factors in terms of like movement, making sure that people aren't sat around sedentary watching TV, you know, making sure people are moving, then we obviously need then to look at sort of maybe looking at the hormones. So certainly, you know, what I tend to find is a trend that, you know, at the moment, sort of seeing several clients with the same sort of symptoms, is they get the initial weight loss, that comes off, they're elated, they've lost half a stone, they feel great, and then potentially the weight will plateau. So we need to then start digging a little bit deeper, and we can then be looking at a classic simple sort of scenario would be where you've got an estrogen dominant situation where estrogen is more dominant in the body, and that can cause some issues with stubborn weight gain. That could be traced back to the liver. The liver's not clearing, so there could be potential blocks in the liver. We've got different pathways in the liver where the different estrogens will be cleared out. So we've got phase 1 and phase 2 of detoxification. So we need to make sure phase 1, phase 2 is working, and also phase 3, which is the elimination. So making sure that the bile's working, that the gut's eliminating, getting it out, and also making sure that the kidneys are functioning as well. So yeah, I think estrogen dominance is a big one in terms of sort of stubborn weight gain, and I've seen it. What I tend to do is if we've gone through all of the the food and the movement and exercise, and then we've kind of like hit a plateau, then I tend to sort of request that we run the Dutch test, and then that looks at all of the sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, which is produced in the adrenal glands, and then looking at cortisol as well, and those are the different markers as well. But potentially that then tells me how the body is kind of detoxifying estrogen, or if not, as the case may be, and you might find that particular pathways are blocked, so they need to be cleared, and looking at sort of adding in supplements and foods that really help to just basically, it's almost like if you can imagine sort of like a bathtub, it's sort of making sure that all the drainage is kind of flowing out, otherwise it backs up, and that's where we get problems. So yeah, I mean, I won't go too scientific, but certainly in terms of estrogen dominance, that can be a classic when it comes to sort of weight gain, and also coming from anywhere that's increasing estrogenic loads. So we're talking about endocrine disrupting chemicals, so we need to take a look at your beauty products, your household cleaning products, and also looking at sort of pesticides, herbicides, the foods that we eat. Are you washing your vegetables? Are you maybe eating organic foods? Looking at sort of like parabens again in our beauty products, body lotions we put on our skin, shampoos, conditioners, fabric conditioners, and then things like phthalates as well, that are again all hidden in our beauty products. And I think that this is something that I teach my clients, is more of a holistic thing. So we look at food, we look at movement, we look at looking at tidying up your beauty products, your household things, making sure that you're not exposed to these estrogenic compounds, and also sort of like drinking from plastic bottles, reusing plastic bottles, drinking from those that aren't BPA free. I always recommend that clients use a glass bottle. I've got one that I use for the gym, which is a glass bottle with a silicone sleeve. So yeah, microwaving food in plastics, wrapping food in plastics. Again, these hormone endocrine disrupting chemicals will mimic estrogen, so they latch on to the hormone receptors on the cell. So the cell thinks, oh, this is actually estrogen. Well, it's not. So it mimics it, and then obviously that's another way that estrogen can rise in the body. And then if we've not got good liver detoxifications, again, that could potentially be through a poor diet, too much alcohol, too many recreational drugs, smoking, too many medications. So yeah, they all play a part. I mean, I'm just touching on the basis here, but it can get, it's just having an understanding. And I think this is where testing really comes in useful, is when we have hit that stumbling block, then we need to, it's more of a kind of like a case of elimination, because there are so many causative factors why women may be struggling with their weight. So certainly estrogen is a big one there.
So I've heard of that, those external ones. I actually didn't know about the household products, so now I'm like,
yeah. I mean, I think I do make sure that sort of I use sort of toxic free cleansers, cleaners, and things like that, and minimize washing powders, washing up liquids, nail polish, makeup, deodorant, Yeah.
How do people react to that when it comes to like, okay, so your makeup?
Yeah, I mean, it's never going to be an overnight thing. I mean, Jesus Christ, people would be running for the hills. But I mean, all you can do is just make people aware of it. You can't force people to do it, and that's certainly not how I roll. But you know, making them aware that, you know, we have an issue here. You want to resolve it. These are some of my recommendations that we can do to minimize that. We can't minimize everything because, hello, we live in the 21st century. We live in the environment that we live in, and we can't avoid that unless we live in a bubble, which would be rather boring. But
yeah,
yeah, I think just having an awareness of maybe the things that we can just try and do to help to minimize, and you know, that needs to be done over a period of time. It's not sort of like, we'll make sure this is done by our next appointment. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's something I've done over the years, and you know, I'm all for you know, my friends and my family laugh at me sometimes, but I'm like, well, you know,
yeah, no, but that's like
what I preach, haven't I?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh yeah, don't do this, and this, and then just layering on everything yourself.
Yeah, I won't mention any brands because, you know, I don't want to be seen to be biased or whatever else. But certainly, in terms of hormones, that can be a you know, a factor. And obviously, you know, this can be driven by sort of stress and toxins as well. So and also, you know, oftentimes you'll find that people who potentially have got higher levels of estrogen, not all the time, but they will have some form of high you know, sort of adrenal output in terms of cortisol. So then, you know, the Dutch test then looks at the sort of like the circadian rhythm. So cortisol should peak in the morning around sort of 8 o'clock to get us up, get us out of bed, get us motivated, and then it should drop off throughout the day, and then that should sort of like taper down, and that's when the body starts to produce melatonin, which is the hormone that helps us to sleep and is also a very powerful antioxidant. So it's looking for that diurnal pattern on the Dutch test and making sure that, you know, we're not having a peak of cortisol late at night, which can make us sort of be feeling wide awake at night, and then we've got that sort of second wind, which can then impact on our sleep. So again, cortisol, when the body is stressed, you know, again, you know, the body will sort of you know, it kind of like holds on to you know, if the body feels its survival is threatened, then weight loss you know, won't be so natural when the body's stressed and inflamed. So if we've got a lot of stress going on, or whether there's inflammation in the body, whether, you know, we've got gut issues, and you know, the gut in itself can create sort of toxins that can affect the liver. So if you've got an inflamed gut, or we've got you know, a viral infection that's kind of laying dormant and causing some problems, you know, then that all needs to be addressed as well, because they can also play a role in you know, in that kind of like sort of, if you know, if the body is feeling stressed and inflamed and it's not in its natural state, then it will feel threatened. And you know, then once we address the stress or the toxins and or the excess hormones, or you know, the food allergies, then the body will find that equilibrium again, and you know, things generally do sort of, you know, find their balance.
Yeah. You mentioned the Dutch test there. What exactly is the Dutch test? Just for people who don't know, myself
Yeah,
included.
so it's dried urine testing of comprehensive hormones. So is kind of one of the gold standard testing. So it's quite a pricey test. I've done it myself, and it's, you know, I was quite sort of shocked to see that I had high estrogen levels that needed to be cleared out. So it looks at sort of the sex hormones. It looks at testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, DHEA, cortisol. It also looks at inflammatory markers. It looks at organic acids, you know, so, and also melatonin and things like that. So it's really, really comprehensive. So it does tell me as a practitioner quite a lot about what's going on. And, you know, I think that it's also quite important to understand that, you know, if we've got I mean, I won't go into the particular pathways because it's too scientific, but the thing is, you know, if we've got one potential pathway that's blocked and backed up and not clearing properly, then, you know, if over a period of time this particular pathway can cause damage to the DNA, and then we could potentially be looking at some damage. And when we've got damaged DNA, we've potentially got a cancer situation. So while I'm not looking at it from that perspective. But if we've got a constant sort of blocked pathway, which is known like sort of as a naughty pathway, and that's constantly blocked, you know, it could potentially be that could cause some DNA damage further down the line, and may be a driver for more of the hormone related cancers.
Okay.
Yeah, but that is quite interesting. But I mean, as I say, that's not something I'm looking for, but I think long term, making sure that we are, you know, clearing out our estrogens and things like that is really important. So
Yeah, I do know the high level estrogen is quite common, I think, especially.
Yeah, it can be quite common in women that are sort of perimenopausal, because I've obviously, you know, when we sort of hit that 40, it's not always 40, but it is generally around that 40-year mark where, you know, the hormones start to sort of drop, and then you've got, what generally happens is the progesterone will drop slightly faster than the estrogen. So then progesterone and estrogen should always be in balance to kind of counteract one another. So when the progesterone falls slightly faster than the estrogen, then that can then leave the body in more of an estrogen dominant state. So then that's where we get sort of like heavy irregular periods, PMS, sort of that weight gain, and, you know, sort of endometriosis and things like that. So, you know, those are common, you know, sort of menstrual headaches, you know, things like that. So that's when we tend to get some more of those symptoms when we've got, you know, an imbalance going on. Yeah.
Stress as well. Stress takes away from your progesterone, doesn't it? Basically.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the stress will sort of there's all different pathways. So, you know, hormones are all made out from cholesterol, and then there's all different pathways that the body will use that up. But certainly, you know, when the adrenals are pumping out sort of cortisol, adrenaline, and that also affects testosterone production as well, as cortisol can block the testosterone receptors. So, you know, common symptoms, you know, maybe low libido, if you've got a lot of stress going on, as I say. So yeah, I mean, of course, as I say, and also like I mentioned earlier, when the body is stressed, you know, the body thinks it's threatened, so everything kind of like
shuts down.
It's not in balance so much. Yeah. Also, one other thing is kind of like toxins as well. So when we've got a situation where, you know, somebody is potentially overweight or obese, then, you know, toxins will generally be stored in the fat cells, and fat cells themselves are actually metabolically active. So they produce their own estrogen through an enzyme activity called aromatase. So the body will produce more estrogen. The fat cells will produce more estrogen, and, you know, then, you know, all that in itself, and also the fat cells can become, you know, sort of quite inflammatory. So it's almost like what comes first, a chicken and egg. Well, I'm trying to lose weight, but the fat cells are causing some issues in the body. So you know, is it looking at addressing toxins as well? Because when you've got somebody that wants to lose quite a large amount of weight, then, you know, you've got a situation where you need to make sure that, you know, we're supporting the liver, because when the fat cells, you know, start to shrink, then obviously they're going to be starting to release some of the toxins. So we just need to make sure that we're supporting, you know, all of the pathways and things like that. So yeah.
And is there any particular like foods or supplements that can kind of help with this, or is it really case by case basis?
Yeah, I mean, there are classic foods that are really, really good for, I mean, broccoli, or the kind of like the cruciferous family. So we're talking broccoli, kale, cauliflower, turnip, rocket, Brussels sprouts, broccoli seed sprouts have got the highest level of sulforaphane in it, which is really potent, and really the liver loves broccoli and those kind of cruciferous vegetables. So yeah, I mean, I just sprout some broccoli seeds on my windowsill in a little jar, and I sprinkle them onto soups and put them in salads and things, or put them into smoothies, and they're really powerful. They're really helpful for the liver detoxification. So certainly brassicas, those families, that family of green vegetables, and also making sure that you're getting a good daily dose of that. So I mean, if you don't particularly like the taste of it, then you just put some in your smoothie. So that can be quite helpful. There are supplements you can take, but I think, you know, you need to make sure that, you know, you've got certain pathways working first. I mean, you know, there is something called DIM, which is a part of the compound of the brassica families. But if you take DIM and you've not got good phase 2, then you could potentially be making things worse. So I think in terms of supplements, there are various different things that you can take, but you need to make sure that you need to look at what's happening. So is it phase 1 that's congested? Is it phase 2? Is it both? So it's making sure that you're using certain nutrients and sort of certain cofactors. When I say cofactors, I mean vitamins and minerals. Making sure that we've got all of the sort of compounds in place. Certainly with like phase 2, we need to be looking at methylation factors, making sure that the body's got enough B6, B12, folate, methionine, and sort of like choline and stuff like that. So yeah, it probably doesn't mean anything to anyone as I'm reading all of this off, but I think that's where the Dutch test comes in, because it does tell you where you need to sort of target. So it's always like working, but there's no point trying to clear someone's liver out if they're constipated. So it's not that that phase 3 elimination sort of exit route is not going to be we don't want to have somebody who's constipated and we're working on removing toxins from their liver, because it will just go back into circulation again and put extra strain on the liver. So yeah, I think that's an important factor as well to look at.
I think with DIM as well, you have to remember you can't take that if you're on the pill, can you?
No, it's not something that, again, it's one of these supplements that need to be checked against sort of any medication. So it's not something, I mean, I'm not allowed to recommend it to my clients because I'm a member of BANT, and it's not it hasn't been a supplement that has been approved, but I mentioned it because I think probably some people maybe are familiar with it, but it isn't something that I would be able to use anyway. And I don't think it's a good idea for anybody that's listening just to go off and do some of these random sort of detoxing things, because you don't know, you might actually be making things worse, and we don't want that. So I think it's important that if you really are struggling with symptoms, that you do speak to somebody who knows what they're talking about, or is fully qualified and is able to sort of walk them through it.
Yeah. Do you find when people come to you, they expect to be put on some form of detox or some quick elimination
no, I haven't had anybody sort of expect some like overnight shake diet or whatever. I don't think that's the way forward. I mean, I think there are lots of detox products out there, but the liver will happily detox itself if it's got the right nutrients, making sure that it's got all the vitamins and minerals it needs, all the B vitamins, zinc, magnesium, and things like that. So we need to make sure that we've got all of the nutrients that the liver needs to do the detoxification properly, and also so it's just making sure that the body has what it needs to do what it can do. But I'm not a huge fan of some quick fix shake, because it never is a quick fix.
No.
It's taken 20 years of a shit crap diet. You can't expect to unpick that in a couple of months. It needs to be done. The body is a marvelous machine, and it will sort itself out, because the body will always find that equilibrium of balance. But I think if clients expect an overnight result, then I'm probably not the practitioner that they want to be working with, because I'm a realist.
Yeah, the ones who promise overnight tend to just want your money.
Yeah, and I think that while supplements play a really important part, and there are some fantastic supplements out there, and some really, really great products, companies out there that have got the knowledge of the supplements is amazing, and what it can actually do. I think that if you're just going to rely, okay, well, I can take this supplement, I can still drink wine every night, and I can still eat sugar and have a really rubbish diet, but and then just rely on this supplement to sort me out. Well, no, it doesn't actually work like that. But ultimately it comes back to the client, their mindset. If they're committed to do the work and take the recommendations, then you will see the results. But if you're just relying on a supplement or some shake that you're going to take just to do the work, then you're not going to get the results that you want. The mindset needs to be there, and that's something that I can't. Your mindset is something that you really need to want to do it. I mean, obviously I do coach my clients and I do kind of push them along, but if the willpower and the desire is not there, then we're wasting each other's time. And I don't want to work with somebody like that. I want to work with women that want to help themselves, and I'm all for that. So yeah, I think that's important, because otherwise you're just going to waste your time, you're just going to waste your money, you won't get the results you want, and that's no good for anybody, is it really? So
no, I think that's really important. When people sign up, sometimes they're like, okay, I'm gonna pay you and you're gonna fix me. I'm like, well, there's only so much I can do. So if you haven't committed to it,
things that can potentially cause when people hit that stubborn weight gain, and then there could be an underlying reason. Another one is potentially food allergies as well. There might be certain food that you're eating that your body isn't sort of able to digest, or it doesn't systematically it's not agreeing with you, so it's creating the body to produce more water. So while it might not be fat per se, you might actually be having an immune response where the body is then sort of holding on to water to try and sort of eliminate the particular food. I mean, I don't eat gluten, not that I'm a celiac or anything, but I just know for me it just makes me feel bloated, and it doesn't do great for my digestion, so I keep off it. I don't have anything with gluten, and that's the way I choose to live. But I think certainly some people really do struggle with certain, maybe they might be eating a particular food that is actually aggravating their weight. So it might be just that they're puffing up, and that's not helping with what they see when they look in the mirror, type of thing.
do you focus with them mostly on the weight loss, or do you get them to kind of take other elements into account? So the weight loss plateau can sometimes just be you've gotten as far as you're going to go, but you're still getting leaner.
Yeah, I think that's important, because I think, especially if you're working out, that, I think a lot of people get obsessed with the scales, don't they? I mean, you probably sort of might see that with your clients as well. Well, I haven't lost any weight, but well, you might have put on a few bit of muscle, but you've actually lost fat. And I think that's one thing that the general household scales don't tell us, is it? It's like people become obsessed that they've, not lost weight, and actually it's you might have lost fat, but but you might have gained some muscle there. So I think like you said, I think it might be that person's hit their set point. Some people are never going to be like a beanpole, and that's just the way their body is, and that their body has that set point, and they'll always kind of come back to that. I think it's being realistic. I mean, if we've got somebody that's at an ideal weight for them, and they want to continue to lose weight, then that would potentially be a red flag for me. But again, I think if we've got a situation where people are really doing what they need to be doing, and they're just not losing the weight, then that's when we need to start looking at different avenues. And it might be that we do all this, and sometimes the weight just doesn't go. I mean, I'm not a magician. I can only just go with what I know, and what are the main sort of areas that potentially could be causing that. And that is kind of like an elimination process. So we need to look at the foods, we need to look at your exercise routine. Are you actually moving? Because people are quite good at saying, oh yeah, well, I've eaten this, I've eaten that, and like, well, have you? Are you? I mean, how much are you eating? Sometimes when I think that clients are really struggling, then I might just sort of ask them to send me some photos of their food and what they are actually eating, and then I can get an understanding of like their food portions and things. But yeah, I think sometimes people can get a little bit despondent, like the weight's not coming off, so then they turn to sort of like rubbish foods again, and then they sort of get that weight gain back, and then they feel like, oh, why am I even bothering? But it isn't a quick fix. It's a way of life. And yeah, I mean, for anybody that does eat well and lives a healthy way, then I mean, I generally eat well. I have the odd glass of wine now and again, but I know that if I was to eat pizzas and start eating chocolate and drinking every night, I would feel dreadful. So I know what it feels like to feel great, to feel energized, to feel that way. But I also know what it feels like to feel rubbish. I mean, it is the 80-20 rule, I think, as well, making sure that you're doing fairly well 80%, and then having a little bit of what you fancy 20%, because let's face it, life without wine and chocolate would be pretty dull. I mean, chocolate's not my thing, but you got to have a little bit of what you fancy. It's not all about, I mean, you probably understand that yourself, Chrissy, don't you?
Oh yeah,
you
definitely.
can't train a bad diet, can you?
No, you can't. 100% can't. That is true. But also I think as well, people are surprised when if I mention that, like, oh yeah, I'm getting pizza at the weekend. So I'll have a takeaway at the weekend. I don't care. I train enough.
Yeah,
But,
exactly. Yeah,
but people
yeah.
are like, what? You eat that? And I'm like, yeah, I'm human. I'm not a robot. I'm not training for anything. It's not like I'm trying to do a bodybuilding show where I have to watch everything. So
Yeah. And I think you'll probably know that. I mean, as I say, I'm not into sport. I mean, I did cover sports nutrition at college, but it's not an area of expertise for me, and it's not something I obviously. But I think people think that they can eat a rubbish diet and then sort of train like a Trojan, and it doesn't really work like that. But yeah, so
I've tried it. Believe me, before I was a PT, I tried it. It didn't work.
Yeah. I mean, a little bit what you fancy now and again does you good. Of course it does. But I think another thing as well with the cortisol, with the stress hormone as well, is that can have an impact on our thyroid as well. So I think most people understand that if their thyroid's a little underactive, or what we would call hypothyroidism, where the thyroid's under functioning as well. So cortisol can have an effect on the T4, which is the inactive form of the hormone, which can get converted into reverse T3. So that's basically the body will produce reverse T3 when it's sort of like in starvation, or it's just kind of there as a protective mode to sort of preserve the body's reserves. So if you've got a client with high sort of like stress, and it might be worth looking at their reverse T3, because if their body feels it's under stress and under threat, then that can be sort of produced in times of stress, or chronic sort of dieting and starvation. So, and I think when people are trying to lose weight, they are sort of like inadvertently increasing their cortisol, because they're maybe not eating very much, and then they're working out like doing like 5 HIIT training sessions a week, and so they're overdoing it. They're producing more cortisol, so they're actually having a knock-on effect on their thyroid. So their body's like, nope, we need to put on the brake. We're not having this. We need to sort of reserve. So that can often be a factor as well. And I think you probably see it quite a lot in what you do, don't you? With people that think, potentially if you've got a weight loss client, that they're working out too much.
Yeah. I actually had this conversation with a PT group this morning. A few of them were talking, like one of them wants to do the class in the morning. They've done 4 days this week, like 2 PT sessions, classes every day. One of them wanted to do the morning and said, right, if you feel up for doing it, do it. And the other's like, no, I'm going to take tomorrow off. And I go, no, oh no, should I not take tomorrow off? I was like, if you're tired, take tomorrow off. Are you coming Saturday? You're coming Saturday, grand. That's 5 days this week. You do not need to do 6 days in a row. And they were like, all right. I was like, you're going to hamper. Like, you're actually going to make it worse for yourself. And like you get that a lot with them. They'll start and they just go hell for leather, and within 4 weeks they're either burning out or they're dropping off. And you see it every January, same thing.
Yeah. The classic, when everyone joins the gym but they never actually go. But I think that's another thing that I tend to point out is certainly if we've got a client with the Dutch test, and I can see the results where they have got a lot of high stress, then certainly if they are going, like say, hell for leather, doing all these HIIT training exercises, like where they're really exerting themselves, that's going to create more stress. So they'll probably be more suited to do maybe a lower impact exercises, maybe go for a nice bike ride, or just being a little bit more gentle, or even something quite restorative like yoga or Pilates. I think you don't necessarily have to be in like high burning fat mode. You don't have to be like working out like a good one to be in your fat burning mode. So I don't know, is that right, Chrissy?
100%. People underestimate the how easy you can make a difference, like the likes of a walk. People are like, what? That's not exercise. You're like, you don't have to be drenched in sweat to do like I don't do HIIT training. It's not for me. Like I do weight training all the time. Really underestimate it. Like, but HIIT training looks cool and everyone's sweating and it sells, but it's the boring stuff that works.
Yeah, I think that's important, because obviously you with the weight training you're sort of increasing your lean muscle mass, which again is kind of like, it helps with the metabolism and everything else. But also weight training and weight bearing exercises are really great, and I think women should be doing it in their 20s, because as we hit menopause, estrogen has a protective effect on our bones.
Yeah.
So bone density can be an issue. Osteoporosis can be an issue for people in menopause. So getting that bone density through weight training and weight bearing exercise is really key, and that should be starting, you know, much younger in a woman's life.
I think as well, it's starting to move away from the, girls were a lot afraid of weights for a long time because, they don't want to end up bulky. And I think they're starting to finally leave that. But you still get it more so with the older people. Like
Yeah.
girls in their 20s are pretty happy to do it, but I'm noticing kind of like it's still people who might be in their like late 30s, early 40s are still a bit wary of it. But like I've tried for the last 10 years, you can't get bulky, I swear.
No, because we don't have the testosterone,
No.
do we? I mean, I think, you know, when I came out of lockdown and went back to the gym, and I think for me, sort of like, I mean, I did really ache when I first went back, but within a week, you know, I started to sort of like see a shape in my body already, you know, and that's just through, you know, I wasn't doing any cardio then. I you know, just doing the weights, and I could see the results just by doing the weights, and yeah, it's a nice feeling to feel strong.
Yeah.
Not like, you know, Popeye. Neither would you want to look like olive oil, but you know, having that sort of, you know, and I think, yeah, I mean, you know, social media's got a lot to answer for, but I think a lot of the trends are coming through now is like sort of this big booty, kind of like this big bum, and big bums are in, you know, and like my husband calls me like boy bum because I'm kind of like a little bit straight up and straight down. But, you know, I think, you know, having a big bum is, women are liberating it. And I think great, you know, I mean, who wants to see, you know, like a little stick insect? I think women with some flesh and some shape is what epitomizes a woman, you know, and I'm all for it.
I'm the same. It's great to see that because I was growing up in the 2000s when, size 0 was the thing.
Yeah.
And I that's another thing I notice now. Now I think I'm okay with it now, but I notice a lot of people my age, they're very afraid of carbs. Carbs became the enemy when I was growing up, and they're like, I can't eat that. That's bad. And you're like, you can. It's fine. And it comes back from that, like.
Yeah. And I think, you know, one thing I don't do with my clients is label food like good and bad and it's a treat. I mean, you know, there are some foods are more nutritious than others.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, some foods are kind of like empty calories. But you know, it's you know, it's kind of coming away from that. It's a sin and it's a treat. Because, you know, I think, you know, the body picks, you know, the reward pathways with the dopamine and things like that. And there are studies that show that, you know, sort of like when people have sugar, that it does actually light up the opioid receptors in the brain just as much as something like cocaine. And we all know how addictive that, you know, class drugs can be. So just having that sort of like, it's like, you know, you've got sugar, which is having a same effect on your brain, you know, and that's probably a lot of the things why, you know, people see food as a reward, because it lights up those reward pathways, that dopamine sort of hit. You know, sort of like you get with adrenaline, and, you know, those adrenaline junkies and things like that. It's that kind of like reward. And I think people look at food as sort of, you know, an emotional thing. And sometimes it's with weight, it's never just about the food. There's always an emotional attachment to it. You know, but I think certainly when you've got a real emotional eaters, that would be something that you would needed for somebody that would specialize in that area, because that isn't something that I would feel comfortable taking on somebody with an eating disorder, because you really do need to have sort of like proper training on that. But, you know, I think,
No, it is. It's a very tough one going across the lines of eating disorders. Definitely need specialist training, I think, in that, because that goes way deeper than just, I can't eat that.
And it becomes very challenging, and you need to know how to deal with it, and how to sort of like maybe work with their primary care as well if they've got mental health issues, or if they've, you know, sort of any anorexic or something like that. But, you know, obviously that's a different sort of set altogether. But I think just maybe one last thing to touch on is sort of like there are lots of studies on like sort of how our you know, microbiome, which is kind of the collection of bacteria and viruses and everything that lives in our gut, and that, you know, studies are showing that, you know, even certain strains, so if certain strains are missing in the gut, that can have an impact, and shows in studies of people that are obese. that they have a lower diversity of gut bacteria. And you know, making sure that we've got a diverse array of different bacteria species, because you know, certain species have got various different sort of like roles within the gut, and obviously immunity is key one there, as you know, most of our immunity is within the gut, and also serotonin is actually produced in our gut, you know, which is the happy hormone as well. So making sure we've got, you know, good gut health is really important. Again, you know, working on the inflammation. You know, if you've got sort of constantly bloated, you know, you're always constipated, you know, you're always taking sort of like laxatives to go, or you've always got the runs, you know. There are lots of, I mean, people generally understand what digestive issues are, don't they? But you know, these things can lead to sort of more chronic gut infections, colitis, diverticulitis, you know, Crohn's and things like that, which are really quite inflammatory. I mean, anything with itis on the end is an inflammation. So, you know, it's looking at the gut lining, the gut bacteria. So, you know,
it gets to the likes of colitis and stuff like that. That can get very serious.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, it's looking at, you know, potentially making sure that we've got a nice diverse range of bacteria in the gut. And, you know, we can do that through making sure that we get, you know, a rainbow of foods, you know, diverse fruit and vegetables, you know, maybe having prebiotic foods like asparagus, sort of chicory, bananas, apples, beans and lentils, things like that. And then making sure that we've got like maybe getting some probiotic foods in. So fermented foods like kimchi, sauerkraut, you know, kombucha, you know, sort of like things like that. So yeah, it's just making sure that we've got enough of the diverse bacteria, and making sure that we've got enough good fiber that the bacteria can make short chain fatty acids, which then help to keep inflammation lower in the gut. So yeah, it's painting a bigger picture, isn't it, and looking at the body as a whole, really. Yeah, so I think, you know, there are studies that show that the gut bacteria does also play a part in obesity. So the more, you know, the more diverse, rich we have, you know, it tends to be found more so in people that are leaner, and people that are more sort of overweight and obese be showing that they've got a lower end of rich. Not, you know, that's just a study, but that is kind of like the trend. There is, you know, far more to it than that, but you know, there is kind of like reports that and studies that correlate with looking at the microbiome in terms of like obesity and things like that. So yeah, it is really looking at the body as a whole, really.
Yeah, that is, and I know some people might be slightly brain fried listening to this, but it isn't as it doesn't always as complicated as it sounds.
No, I hope I haven't gone too deep and bored everybody. If anyone's asleep, you can wake up now.
No, I think this is really informative. There's loads of different things, and it's probably touch on things maybe some people aren't realizing that could be like, oh, this is something that maybe it could be a food thing, maybe it's a hormone thing, that they could be bloated all the time. They're not sure. It could be stress as well. It could be IBS. It could be many things. But like, you know, if it can get people to look into it more and maybe do something about it, because like you don't need to live like that, you know.
No. And I think, you know, when you say nutritional therapist to someone, they're probably like, oh, she's just going to look at my food and be like, you can't eat this, you can't eat that, which, you know, it's recommending to remove potential foods or maybe add in some extra foods. But I think as well, you know, I have access to a lot of different lab testing. So, you know, we can look at your thyroid levels, we can look at your bloods, we can look at your hormones, we can look at your stool testing. You know, we can look at inflammatory markers, we can look at food intolerance testing. I mean, you know, the list is quite endless, really, of ways that we can actually test, get clear results, get quicker and better outcomes for clients if that's within their budget.
Yeah, I think people do need to. I get that as well. Like, people would think you're just going to be like, no, you can't eat this, and you have to exercise every day for.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, you know, it's just kind of having an understanding of, you know, it isn't just about food, and that's, like I said earlier, it's not what about, you know, it's looking at the body as a whole and the things I mentioned earlier, and we do take that into account when I do work with clients. So it does have an impact.
Okay, so I have one last question for you. I think I warned you about this the other day. So what is the best advice that you've ever been given?
I think in terms of like my role as a nutritional therapist, I think that, you know, while testing it can be quite pricey, it is always best to test, don't guess.
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, while you can work off people's symptoms, I think once you've got clear results, you know what you're working with, you know where you're going in, targeting that area, you're gonna kind of get the work done in a quicker space of time, rather than you just kind of poking around in the dark thinking, well, could it be this, could it be that? So yeah, I think in terms of my role, then I would say, you know, test, don't guess.
That's a very good one as well. And do you have any personal ones?
Actually, I'm reading a really good book at the moment. I think I'm always somebody that's on a sort of a self-help journey, and I think one of the things I have read about, not necessarily anyone's told me, is actually, you know, you're not broken. You are, you know, I think sometimes we're all in a pattern of thinking, oh, you know, this isn't right, you know, or, you know, I haven't got the relationship I want, I'm not earning the money I want, and you know, I haven't got this that I want, and that, oh, there's something wrong with me. And, you know, I think it's about, you know, you're not broken. There isn't anything fundamentally wrong with you. It's just about, you know, working through the resistance of maybe why that isn't happening for you. So, you know, because otherwise you just go down a rabbit hole of like always thinking there's something wrong with you. I'm not good enough. I'm not this enough. I'm not that enough. Well, you came into the world good enough. It's just through your own conditioning, or maybe others, that you've believed, you've taken on this belief that I'm not good enough to run my business. Well, yes, you are good enough. And it's just, it's a process that you go through in this book, and it sort of helps you to identify maybe what it is that's holding you back. You address that, and then you kind of look for ways to be guided on what you can do to take action to get you from A to B. So I think, you know, we can always go on forever and a day trying to think, I need to be fixed, you know, I need to do this to get that. Well, you know, no, I don't think necessarily it is. It's just a label that we put on ourselves. So yeah, I think maybe, yeah, I've always been a little bit like that, you know. I think, oh, I've got that now, something else needs to be fixed. Well, you know, there isn't. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Maybe.
Oh no, I've done that myself. No, it does. I actually really like that. You're not broken. It's like it's short, but it's to the point, and I think that'll resonate with a lot of people. And
yeah, because it's almost like you're in search of the holy grail. You know, you're never going to bloody find it, because there isn't really anything wrong with you. You know, ultimately, I mean, I think the book highlights of people that have become successful, like Lady Gaga, or, you know, Michael Jackson, and some of the other, you know, Kurt Cobain, some of the other big people. You know, they're fundamentally, they've all got their flaws.
yeah.
If people want to look at it that way, but because, you know, they're slightly different but eccentric, or, you know, maybe they don't fit into sort of like the idealistic way of somebody should behave, doesn't mean to say you can't be successful. And I think we put blocks in our way, and we stop ourselves from becoming and being and doing what we want and what we want in our life, because we've got this condition that we potentially maybe put on ourselves that, well, I'm not good enough, I can't do it. Well, yes, you can. I hope that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. It really
In my
does.
head, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, it made sense to me too as well. I thought it was very good. So okay, just before you go, Nikki, can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, sure. So I've got, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram. So I think on Facebook it's Nikki Harris Women's Hormone Health, and on Instagram it's Nikki Harris Hormone Health. And then my website is www.nikkiharris.co.uk. So yeah, you can take a look around my website if you want to book a call with me. I'd offer a free 30-minute discovery call, just to sort of see, you know, but I mean, I would always recommend booking that call in if you really are sort of committed to getting the results. But you know, that there's also a contact page if you just want to ask me a question and maybe you're not quite ready to book in a call. But yeah, I mean, sort of, you know, certainly, you know, I'm all for helping women and helping them to understand, you know, there is a way to get back to feeling, you know, their ultimate best. And I think that's fundamentally what we all want to feel. We all want to feel good. We want to look in the mirror and like what we see. We want to feel good. We want to have enough energy. And I think, yeah, if we distill it down, I think people just want to feel good. They want to feel good.
Yeah, I think you're right, definitely.
Yeah.
And Facebook, guys, with me. As ever, you'll still find me on Instagram and TikTok at Chrissy H Fitness. So I want to thank you again, Nikki, for joining us today.
Thank you for the opportunity, Chrissy. It's been lovely.
Thank you again for listening to the Why Not podcast. It really means a lot that you are listening in, and I would love if you could please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or subscribe on Spotify. And always, I'd love to hear feedback personally, so if you do want to leave me a message and let me know how you found the podcast, please do.